In 2015, at their E3 press conference, Sony shocked the gaming world by revealing a trailer for the Final Fantasy VII Remake. How could a video game announcement, of a remake at that, command such an emotional response? It's one thing to take nostalgia and generate hype and excitement. It's another thing to move a fanbase to tears. In this video, we'll explore some of the elements that go into transforming a game into a beloved classic. In 1997, Squaresoft released the 7th installment of their RPG series, Final Fantasy. The role-playing genre was a huge staple in the Japanese market in the 80s and 90s. Of all the games, Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest were the most prolific franchises, often seeing long lines to purchase a game during new launches. This success in Japan didn't really translate to the American market in the early years. For whatever reason, the genre that caused a mad fervor in Japan evoked barely a whimper in the US. That is, until 1997. There are a multitude of reasons why Final Fantasy VII achieved what other RPGs could not, but we'll focus on a few critical reasons. During the advent of the 32-bit console era, the developer, Squaresoft, broke ties with Nintendo and partnered with Sony's first foray into the game console scene, the PlayStation. One of the benefits of this partnership was that Sony would foot the bill for marketing. At the time, the PlayStation was the unproven new kid on the block, so this was a very symbiotic relationship. In the forefront of Squaresoft's marketing blitz were the TV spots. They were insanely effective in convincing a new audience to jump in. These TV spots were intentionally misleading. While the Japanese commercials featured actual gameplay, the American spots only showed the computer-generated, non-playable film sequences. The intended effect worked. What ended up happening was a whole new audience had their curiosity piqued and bought the game in droves. Before this new audience could feel betrayed by the marketing, they were already firmly gripped by the storytelling and hooked by the turn-based gameplay they were being introduced to. The game would end up selling 11 million copies worldwide. Another reason is that Final Fantasy VII was one of the pioneers of the PlayStation era storytelling. No longer were character motivations driven by paper-thin plot points. Instead, you became invested in their struggles and transfixed by the game's pathos. The general plot wasn't unlike any other Final Fantasy game, a group of people getting together to save humanity from total destruction. But the unique characters, the sprawling locations, the euphonious soundtrack, all these elements coalesced into something special and unforgettable. In 2005, to show the power of the new PlayStation 3, Squaresoft, now Square Enix, put out a technical and visual showcase that was a total recreation of the Final Fantasy opening. Even though this was not a game announcement, it short-circuited the brains of fans around the world. Finally, in 2015, a perfect storm of events transpired. Sony had learned from its many mistakes during the PlayStation 3 era and needed to win back consumers. Pivotal members of the original Final Fantasy VII development team had openings in their schedules to pursue the project, and enough time had passed so that the prospect of a remake seemed like a worthy endeavor to some of the members of the original team. One of the first TV commercials for the Final Fantasy VII Remake spans 7 minutes, the longest television commercial to ever run in Japan. It doesn't show any footage of the actual game. Instead, it tells the story of a young professional who's never played Final Fantasy VII. When the game gets announced, he starts noticing everyone around him getting excited. His bosses at work gather to share their fond memories and anticipation for how certain scenes will be remade. Even at home, his wife is ecstatic. She recounts her childhood of watching her older brother play the game and being enamored with its characters and story. This 7-minute trailer perfectly sums up why Final Fantasy Remake is such a monumental release. On the surface, it's just polygons and codes on a screen. But beneath that, Final Fantasy VII is a feeling. A feeling that's tied to certain memories. A feeling that evokes a specific emotion. It's these unique feelings that fuels the passion amongst its fans. It's why a stadium packed with adults can collectively lose their minds. With Part 1 of the remake releasing April 10th, 2020, it's just the first step into a larger journey. Who knows when or if Part 2 will ever see the light of day. But for now, the hype, the excitement, the nostalgia, the fear, the passion, it's something special. To me, the Final Fantasy VII Remake and its journey, it's one of the many reasons why gaming is good.